This is the California Liberty Project podcast.
Here we are once again on the California Liberty Project podcast. Thank you once again for joining us, of course. Always appreciate everyone being here. Make sure to subscribe, like, check in, follow, do whatever you have to do. Certainly on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts. Those are our main audio podcasts. And then also check out the new and growing Rumble and YouTube channels. So today, we're recording on a Friday, and I'm really glad to have back on a returning guest, Osvaldo Maysonet of Triggerology. Triggerology.
Yeah.
Get that out the right way. Triggerology, FT, firearms training, and more. So welcome, Osvaldo. Thank you very much for coming back onto the show.
Thanks. Thank you, Greg. I really appreciate you bringing me back on. I had a blast last time, and I'm looking forward to this one.
There's a lot to talk about, right? And there always is. And by the way, so where can people go to follow you? Right up front, where should they be following your exploits and your activities?
Sure. I am on formerly Twitter, now X, at Triggerology FT, on Instagram, Triggerology_FT. I also have this outstanding based merch website where you can find stuff like this. That is triggerology.shop. And my own website is triggerologyft.com.
Very cool. And just really quickly too, because I was wondering this as well. Do you do like full scope firearms self-defense training, or what's kind of your niche on the business? Can you do like CCW training? Like I think that's an 8-hour class, or what kind of training do you do with firearms?
Thank you for asking. So my niche is basic firearms training. The bulk of my students are people who are either new to firearms or they've owned firearms for a while but have never received any sort of, actual training from an instructor other than, just going casually shooting with their friends, loved ones, what have you. So that's kind of the niche that I approach. I have purposely stayed out of the CCW. The reason is on principle, because I do not believe in the CCW licensing scheme, especially that California runs. So I refuse to profit from an infringement. That's on principle. I know I am losing money. There are instructors out there making money hand over fist, like legit, like lots of money, but that I don't believe in the CCW scheme, even though I am a current CCW holder. But sure. I went through that entire process for the purpose of chronicling how ridiculous it is and how it does not help anyone. It doesn't help any of the good people to, have a leg up or an advantage over people who disregard the CCW laws.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just good legal protection to have it, so when you're carrying, you've got that official government license to practice one of your fundamental rights. Right? I mean, it's stupid. It's ridiculous. I'm with you. I'm against it. I'm against all gun law. Every gun law is an infringement. Every government license for a right, a natural right, an inherent right that we're born with to defend ourselves. Yeah, it's totally stupid. But it is one of those things where it's like for yourself, it's like a legal protection, so you don't get in trouble with the law, which we don't want. Don't want our listeners to get in trouble. But I hear where you're coming from there on that stance. Mm-hmm. So, okay, let's go through some California news. We can do some quick hit stuff. We can groan. We can shake our fists at the sky. We can yell. We can make jokes. And then there were some bigger issues that I wanted to talk to you about also. Just this past week, the New Mexico governor thing. But let's hold that because that's non-California news. But I think it has California implications. So let's rail against her and that whole puppet show. Right. Because I think the whole thing was I think there was a lot behind it. Let's talk about that a little bit later. Okay, so just this week here in California, as I'm sure you're aware, as I'm aware, and there are lots of great people following this stuff closely, the legislative session ended for the year, as it always does, mid-September. And so for 2023, by my count and what I've found online, there were 2,600 bills. 2,600 bills were introduced here in California this year in 2023. And somehow we still call ourselves a free people with potentially 2,600 new laws regulating God knows what. All of our neighbors, 99% of our neighbors, you, me, how could any of us keep up with 2,600 bills potentially that could be signed? It's not fitting for a free people, right?
Right.
They regulate every step, every aspect of our lives. By my count, 220 bills, as of last week, had been sent to Newsom's desk. So, okay, we've decimated it. We've chopped it down to 10% or less from the total bills that were introduced, but still 220 new bills. How are we going to keep up with that? I mean, there are some headline marquee bills, right, Osvaldo? But 220 bills, we don't know what all those are. No free person has the time to look into that. Okay, so there were some kind of marquee ones that I wanted to run down and discuss with you. So there was SB 447, which was quietly, I think, already signed by Newsom. That was the state travel ban, basically where California thought they'd be the badasses, the big leaders, back in 2016, saying that you can't travel to these mean, red states that have various LGBTQ laws. That one went away quietly, so they had to eat crow because the rest of the states didn't quite follow. There's SB 447. And then a few other bills, SB 525, which is more insanity. I don't know what you think or if you have an opinion on this, but minimum wage being raised for health workers in clinics up to $25 an hour. I don't know how they're going to do that. How do you support that? It's more market intervention. It's insane. Someone like me doesn't believe in any minimum wage laws, period. But up to $25 an hour with SB 525.
Yeah.
Good luck. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the thing is, when you insert government regulation and artificially inflating wages like that, all you do is you're putting pressure on the smaller small businesses, which is, by the way, what these governments love to tout every now and then. We're all about the middle class, they are the engine for our economy, but yet here they are mandating that you pay a certain wage to your employees. So it does not take a rocket scientist. You are going to damage all these businesses that people take huge amounts of risk and personal sacrifice and sacrificing their hard-earned dollars to invest into these businesses. All you're doing is incentivizing them to either up and leave whoever can out of California, or just bring in new technologies that just replace the workers. And you're also hurting a lot of these businesses are somewhat of what we like to call lower skills, right? So they're perfectly suited for high schoolers or recently graduated out of high school, young kids who need to get these first sets of skills. You're hurting them because you're cutting out from the availability of that type of job.
Yes.
So you're not helping. You're not quite literally not doing what you say that you would like to do. Quite the opposite.
And I'm reminded of, once again, going back to the great Thomas Sowell. As we know, the minimum wage, it isn't $10 an hour or 15, it's zero. Because if you price labor up that much, those unskilled workers or part-time workers or high schoolers or maybe retirees who want to go back and be a greeter at Walmart, they might not get hired if you make it too expensive. So once again, I think these idiots in the state assembly, in the state Senate there in Sacramento. They need to read some Henry Hazlitt, some economics in one lesson, which I've talked about on a previous episode. Everyone, make sure you've read that. That's the most important economics book you'll probably read in 200 pages. So there's my plug. You can get it from the Mises Institute online, which you should all be following. Definitely follow Mises.org. Great, radical, freedom-loving people and Austrian economists. Okay, moving right along, though, because I want to get to a lot of the really important gun news as well and gun topics with you, Osvaldo. AB 1078, of course, that's the state takeover of local curricular control. That one is on Newsom's desk as of today, I believe. I'm not sure if he signed it. And then AB 957, which essentially gets involved in parental custody battles and gives favoritism to the parent who's going to trans their kid. I think that one also is on Newsom's desk, and we'll see what happens here over the weekend in the next few days. Even your dog is pissed about it, sounds like. Yeah, your dog's not taking shit about this.
Nope. He got upset.
Yeah, no, I've calmed down, buddy. It's okay. Then we have the Hollywood writers' strike, which it's funny, like this whole labor movement, they've kind of found their oats. Hollywood writers' strike. Does anyone care? I don't care. I don't know that many people who are, there's real problems in this state. There are people like dying of fentanyl in our streets. And, you can't go to San Francisco without being either mugged or robbed. Highest poverty rates in the nation. And yet we're playing around. We all have to cry for the spoiled writers in Hollywood.
Right.
And on that note, SB 799, they pushed this one through. I think it's on Newsom's desk. They want to give taxpayer money and jobless benefits to workers who opt to strike. So now we have to subsidize people in their fight against management. Isn't that great? Yeah. Thank you. All the taxpayers get to give these people a vacation while they work for higher pay.
I 100% approve of the use of my hard-earned, confiscated tax monies for that purpose.
Yeah, doesn't that give you a warm and tingly feeling?
Yeah, very.
Okay, so here's one directly related to guns and ammo. AB 28, which taxes guns and ammo. It imposes an 11% excise tax on gun retailers and manufacturers of guns. I think I know where you stand on this one, but what are your thoughts on that? And I don't know, maybe do you have any other details on AB 28?
Well, that's two main things: that blatantly, disregard for the Constitution, taxing a right and an enumerated right on our Bill of Rights. That's just abhorrent. That's the word that I'm going to use, and it further encapsulates how much disdain they have, again, for the middle and lower class, the lower strata of the financially speaking of the population, because you are quite literally pricing people out of the exercise of the right. What you are saying, and we need to articulate this to their faces, is you are entirely fine for people who are affluent, who are able to pay whatever tax you tack on this right. You are fine with them exercising this right and having access to the guns and ammunition and all that and paying the taxes. You not so much for the common folk, that works 5, 6, 7 days a week to be able to afford their things. And oh, by the way, they have to live in the areas where you, the political class, do not live, have to navigate, different dynamics out in society, being exposed to the criminal element. You are saying that no, you know what, you little folk, you have to pay more,
right?
And too bad. If you can't, oh well, because they also like to say, which is one thing that I heard right out of their mouths when I infiltrated one of their anti-Second Amendment gun violence prevention events this last week. they love to say there's just too much access to guns. It's just too easy. We need to cut that. We need to cut that out.
Yeah.
Completely disregarding that. What are the reasons why the good people, good citizens of California access guns? Why do they go, and exercise their rights? It is because they know that you, as government, you, Mr. and Mrs. Politician, you cannot deliver on your safety promises. We know that.
Right.
So what else do we have to do? We have to go and take care of it on our own, And it's just abhorrent. It's horrible. And at any given opportunity that I have to tell it to their faces, or at the very least, counter their narratives on their social media, I do, because it's also necessary that the folk that are not very well versed on this subject, that those are points of view that they miss.
Yeah. Yeah, and isn't it incredible too that the leftists and the statist progressives, all those folks who claim to love social democracy or just democracy in general, right, with scare quotes, they love democracy, right? But then when there are 400 million guns in the hands of law-abiding citizens in this country,
that's a problem.
That's a problem, right? It's a problem if the people all choose to exercise their right to defend themselves and their families. So I guess maybe they don't really believe in democracy as it is, right? If we have hundreds of millions of people where we're all looked at suspiciously, right? Like we're all potential criminals. If it weren't for progressives in government, we're all going to be killing each other like Thomas Hobbes or something in a state of nature, right? Like you and I can't live next door to each other, or I can't live with my neighbors in peace while having, a number of weapons legally or according to my natural rights. Like the weapons themselves are going to turn me into a maniac. They're going to turn us all into killers. There's tens of millions of killers, right?
Yeah, it's quite literally.
It's insane the way they think. And yet they're the ones who preached the virtues of democracy. It's total BS, isn't it? And the other thing too, you raised a really good point. You triggered something, no pun intended.
That's good.
You triggered something in my brain on this stupid AB 28. It's a great point for folks who maybe live in difficult neighborhoods or dangerous neighborhoods, law-abiding citizens, maybe retirees who never left.
I'm sorry. Let me stop you. I like to say peaceable citizens.
Peaceable, peaceable,
I like
normal
to say peaceable
citizens.
Better. Yeah. Because we abide. A lot of times we abide by laws that are very, very unfair that we shouldn't be abiding to. We should be resistant.
Exactly.
So peaceable.
So all of those peaceable citizens are fellow neighbors, folks who might not have tons of money. Maybe they don't have a great deal of financial means. As you're saying, if you put like an 11% excise tax on, it'll just be on the retailers and those bad gun manufacturers.
No.
Well, okay. First of all, that's going to trickle down. Doesn't the left, they love trickle down. They love saying trickle down, which doesn't really have much meaning. But all that's going to be passed on to consumers.
Yes.
And the only consumers who they will be hurting are the people in more challenged neighborhoods or people of lower economic means who don't have the money and can't afford the 10, 11% excise tax put onto their firearm or their ammo. And so it's like they end up hurting the people at the, quote, lower end of the economic spectrum. As you pointed out, leftists used to call this a regressive tax, right? When it's the same, it's the same 11% on everyone. It's like, okay, well, that hits the lower rung of the socioeconomic ladder the most. Just like the leftists in Sacramento, and sorry, this is kind of a tangent, but with the stupid gas tax, you go to the pump, you fill up for $100. If they slap on another 5% or 5 cents a gallon, whatever it is, we're up to like, 60, 70 cents per gallon goes to Sacramento villains and some to the feds. Well, they just keep bumping it up. And now people who are rich are paying $100, essentially to fill up on average. Maybe it's 80, maybe it's 125 these days.
Right.
And a lot of people who have less money, it might be the working class or the lower middle class, whatever. They might have work trucks that they have to fill up to get to the job site, right? $100 for them. Well, who does it hurt more? Obviously, it hurts the working man, the working woman, the middle class, who the Democrats say they're for. They're not for them. These are regressive taxes. Anyway, so tangent over on that, but you're exactly right. On AB 28, this is going to hit a lot of small business owners, not just gun manufacturers, the so-called bad guys, as they would describe it. But yeah, it's going to hit small business owners. It's going to hit people who need to buy ammo to defend themselves, and people who can't afford it. And practice and keep. That's right. These are perishable skills, right?
Yeah. That's one big thing, because the left loves to say, "Oh, we're not against the Second Amendment. It's just this set of guns, and there's also too many guns, so many people that have guns and haven't even trained, right?" Well, here you are. It's so ironic that you are creating yet another policy that's going to hinder good people's ability to remain proficient in this life savings skills, in these self-rescuing skills. Why are you doing this?
Right. Well, I've heard them make brilliant points, Osvaldo. There were no AR-15s or machine guns back in 1776, or in 1788 when the Constitution was being debated and written. Right. Brilliant points. Of course, there weren't like individual militias and private citizens who owned cannons and the latest weaponry for fighting the British. Forget all that, but they didn't have AR-15s back then, so the Constitution must not apply, right?
And citizens have never been able to own cannons ever. Right?
Yeah. It's so cringeworthy, man. Speaking of cringeworthy, let's go on to another piece of garbage coming out of Sacramento. Newsom's idiotic. This resolution of his, for the Convention of States, essentially, he wants to put forth a 28th Amendment. He knows it's stupid. He's trying to get his name out there in the national stage. I guess he put it out there, earlier in 2023. Do you know any more about that? Or is that thing going anywhere? Or was it just like a big ploy to get publicity, and get his name out there nationally?
Well, yes, it was a big ploy to get his, to rile up the base, just so he can kind of lay a foundation. Hey, this guy says that he's running for re-election, but you and I know, Democratic base, you and I know that he's not going to, go much further. So here I am laying a foundation of extreme progressive agenda for you to remember me, right? Hey, I am the governor of California, and I am here to vying for your vote. All of those, state loving progressives, right? That love the ever increasing power of the government. Right. That's all it was. In addition to that, what Gavin Newsom failed to calculate is, guess what? If you call a convention of states, every other state also gets to chip in what they would like to do. And there's already buzz in the Second Amendment community. Hey, we may actually just throw in an even more based Second Amendment version, out of which, at least over half of the states in the union would actually vote for it, given the fact that we are already counting 27 states that have some form of constitutional or otherwise known as permitless carry.
Yeah.
So that's something that he failed to calculate.
Right. He's so dense.
Boy.
He's so dense too. Do you think he even knows about the Convention of States movement, which has put forth a number of liberty amendments? They've already got this going. It's a great movement. I know there's some on the right who are kind of a little bit worried about a convention, but it's not just an open constitutional convention. They're putting out very limited, very specific proposed amendments in advance. And then I think you need 2/3 of the states.
As it is supposed to be.
As it's supposed to be, yeah. And you need 2/3 of the states essentially to sign off or vote on these, I think at the state legislature level, I believe. And then later, after the Convention of States happens, once they all agree on everything, then there would need to be, I believe, a 3/4 vote to ratify.
Right.
So it's a steep wall, but this is already going on with serious people who have been working on the Convention of States for years. They've got a number of, I think, very good suggestions there. And I know we could actually beef up the Second Amendment, which would be awesome. I think there might be momentum for that. We could put in more things specifically, so we never have to deal with any vagaries. Not that there is anything vague in the Second Amendment, but I know it's that one comma, right? The right of a free people, da 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 da. But anyway, we can bolster, we can beef up that Second Amendment if they want to. So if he wants to play this game, we've got people on the ground. There are good people who have been playing it for many years, and it's like, yeah, bring it. Let's have a convention of states, because we've got like 10 or 15 other amendments here, which we'd love to see passed, right?
Especially this on that note, especially with the amount of people that we have that are awake and awakening every single day, because guess what? Reality is hitting them hard, especially here in California,
right?
San Francisco, Oakland, Los Angeles, people who have voted generationally for Democrats, but now see the Democrat policies coming, full circle, and how much they are suffering from those. Yeah, I seriously think he miscalculated.
Yeah,
He
I think so. I think so. And I don't think it's serious. I mean, there is absolutely no momentum to crack down on guns nationally. But yeah, it's dead on arrival.
It's so funny.
Yeah, he's an idiot. Yeah, especially as you mentioned, with the state of security and rising crime, even petty crime in places like the Bay Area. It's just so bad. And then around LA with the homeless, again, rising crime there too, petty crime in particular, property crime.
Yeah, it's disgusting. And then a severely defunded police force that's actively telling the citizenry, hey, all these calls, don't bother calling us. We're not going to respond. Yes,
that's
you
right.
are paying our salaries. Yes, you are paying our this entire operation with your confiscated tax money, but we're not answering. Sorry.
Let me ask you, this is kind of tangentially related, but it's definitely related. In terms of security, safety in California, I know there have been more and more of these sideshow events, these street takeovers with these idiots spinning cars out and, getting together, having parties, and in some cases, major intersections, not out in rural farm areas, but in the middle of like South LA and other places in Southern California.
City, yeah. Half a million population city. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, in crowded areas where people could be driving home at 10:30 at night from a job or a shift. As someone who thinks about security and self-defense a lot, what should peaceable people do if you're driving on a road and a bunch of idiots start one of these street takeovers, or even if there's a group of 100 teens doing the wheelies, on the bikes?
Yep.
What do peaceable people do if you're surrounded or if you're in a really dangerous situation like that? What are your thoughts?
I'm so glad you're bringing this up, because it's happening increasingly more and more, not just here in California, but everywhere else. These policies, right? You foster the environment of lawlessness, and then you plunge, almost purposely, you're plunging the people who are lawful into situations where they're having to defend themselves and take sometimes split second decisions. Do I stop? Do I back up and reverse? Do I attempt to push through this crowd? And then this crowd, almost 100% of the times, they get irate, right? They start banging on the car, regardless who is inside the car. And this is all just the abdication of their duty, right?
Yes.
Their duty to foster for the domestic safety. But at the end of the day, the government is wholly incapable, inadequate, and what's the other word I'm looking for? Incapable, inadequate, and incompetent in delivering safety. So it all boils down again to: are you someone who is well versed, who has read your Constitution, your Bill of Rights, and you are familiar with what your rights are? right? Nobody has right to safety, but you have a right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, which includes defending your life
Of
and your
course.
liberty and your pursuit of happiness. So yeah, they're placing a lot of people in very difficult situations, and at times, very sadly, prosecuting them
Yeah.
for those who decide to defend themselves. Oh well, were they armed?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. They were wearing baggy clothes. How am I supposed to know if they were armed or not?
Right.
They were blocking my free movement.
Yes.
They were banging on my car. They were kicking my car. My kids were in the car. All these chaotic circumstances, man. That
Yes.
it's sadly, it saddens me to say, but most people believe this is true. It's only going to get worse.
That's right. And I'm even thinking that national case that we'd seen, it made the national media, national news in Austin. I think his name was Daniel Perry, I believe,
Yep.
who was
No,
legally. I mean, he was carrying on his
no. Wasn't
person.
New York? Wasn't it New York?
Well, that was
Wasn't it in the
Daniel
subway in
Penny.
New York?
That was
Daniel
Daniel
Penny.
Penny, I think. There was that other guy who was surrounded by like
Oh, so
BLM fanatics in
oh,
Austin.
they got pulled out of
And
the car.
he had he's like a veteran or something, and he actually had his firearm with him legally. I think he might have been an Uber driver or
Yes.
something off duty. And a bunch of people like violently surrounded his car. I'm not sure if they're banging. And then he
One of
saw,
them had an AK.
yeah, one of them had an AK. And then I don't know. I forget the circumstances, if the AK was raised or if it was just in the ready position. But this guy was fearing for his life, and he was surrounded, which to me is an aggressive act. If you surround a vehicle and don't allow the vehicle any path to retreat, this is not legal advice, anyone, but I don't know what a peaceable person is supposed to do to get out of that situation. I mean, if those windows get broken, if you get dragged out of your vehicle, God forbid, and I can't believe we're even talking about this, but after 2020 and the summer of hate and all
Mhm.
that, the BLM riots and everything, we have to talk about this, because when there's a court decision or some news that comes out that the left doesn't like, they send their street soldiers and thugs out there to terrorize cities, and people were dragged out of cars or people were assaulted in streets. And I think peaceable people have to have a plan of retreat. I mean, of course, to retreat, but then at what point do you defend yourself? Then you got to worry about a Soros appointed DA,
Right.
claiming that you murdered or assaulted someone when all you wanted to do is peacefully get out of that situation or defend your own life, right? It's a real problem, as you mentioned, because the government has abdicated, just to
Hmm.
use your word from a few minutes
Hmm.
ago. It's an abdication, right, of public safety.
Yeah, absolutely. On that particular case, and just speaking a little bit more broadly as a firearms instructor, what I can say is this, and that's something that I tell all my students: whether it's you or somebody else, once a firearm is brandished, once a firearm is brought into the mix, you are introducing lethal force. You are showing that you have the capacity of lethal force. I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but
Mm-hmm.
just stating the facts. If somebody is approaching your car, wherever it is, and they are presenting a firearm, even if it's generally pointed in your general direction, you are being presented with lethal force.
Right.
Considering it not lethal force could very, very potentially place you at a disadvantage. Because let me just explain it in this fashion. If somebody is pointing a firearm or moving the firearm in your general direction, you're already at a disadvantage. So here
Right.
you are having to make split second decisions again, like I alluded to before.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, please, I don't want this to constitute saying that I am against open carry. I'm for open carry.
Right.
It's just
Right.
it has to be done in the right way. I'm
Yes.
also more than open carry. I'm also for concealed carry. I'm for all carry.
Yeah.
Period. For the
Right.
peaceable people to have the ability to defend themselves at a moment's notice with the best tool possible. that they can acquire and train with and be proficient with.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think,
I mean that gentleman was placed in a very difficult situation. The
yes,
authorities were not controlling the crowd, right? Obviously, there was a gentleman walking in the crowd, and I do kind of remember the story. I think he alleged that the gentleman pointed in his general direction or something to that effect, that low already or something like that.
I think that's correct. Yeah.
How am I going to say that the gentleman didn't feel like it wasn't lethal force? Come on, I just can't.
Well, especially when you've got fanatics and protesters surrounding you, on 2, 3, maybe 4 sides of your vehicle. If you block a retreat path, and if there's someone brandishing a weapon
tough,
in your
man.
direction, then that's a threat to me. The same way that I would say, again, going back to like the sideshow or these stupid street takeovers,
Right.
or a protest on a freeway, to me, that is an aggressive act because you're blocking someone's exit. They're stuck in
Right.
traffic. They're stuck in a very bad situation.
Yeah.
You're standing in front of them, and none of us want to run someone over on a freeway, but those people should be arrested immediately. That's got to be a very serious felony because that is an aggressive action, I think. And it's been tolerated way too much.
Yeah.
And these leftists and the fanatics who are doing this stuff, it's tolerated by these big city DAs. And we're in this state of anarcho-tyranny. I've talked about it before. I've mentioned that Sam Francis article from like 1994, Anarcho-Tyranny USA. There are some fanatics and criminals who are allowed to run rampant and roughshod over your cities. But then if you do something like you park in the wrong place, or if you do any little thing, or you make a mistake on your taxes, you're going to have a knock on your door, or you're going to be thrown in prison, or you're going to be ticketed at the very least immediately. And that's I think the sad state of affairs where we're living today.
Yeah.
Or
if you decide to carry your firearm because you have to without a permit because you are in the lower socioeconomic strata, you can only afford living in a less than desirable neighborhood.
Yeah.
You have to work 7 days a week, probably 2, 3 jobs, right? You cannot afford to take off 2 days on a weekend to go to the CCW course, pay out whatever amount that the instructor asks, which in some cases are exceeding $500.
Oh yeah.
Pay to the law enforcement department in whatever case, wherever your area, for the background check, for the application, right? The CCW application. So in many cases, depending on the area of California, people are shelling out close to $1,000. Whoever can, though.
Right.
Whoever is able. But here you are, right? Something perfectly fine activity that in so many other states doesn't even get you a blip into the law enforcement radar, right? Because it is seen as what it is, a constitutional right. Here in California, they have criminalized it, given countless people criminal records for what is otherwise a constitutional right, a constitutionally protected activity. Just like you said, it's a narco tyranny, and it's tyrannical. It's tyrannical. You as a government, which I love to say, and please don't mind me because I think I may have repeated this the first time you had me. The government, the armed agents of the state have zero duty to protect you. Zero. Already established in plenty of case law. They have zero duty to protect you, but here is the government trying to mandate in which way you protect yourself now. It can't be that way. That is something that is abhorrent, it's egregious, it's a travesty. I mean, any bad adjective that you can give to that, the way that this government is trying to treat citizens, treating citizens as subjects, not as citizens. It's bad.
Right.
Let me throw it. I'm going to throw one more thing that I need to make sure that I get out.
Yeah.
To your audience and anyone who can hear my voice, please push back at every opportunity when they trying to talk down on you by calling you a civilian. That is a theme. I don't know
Okay.
if you've seen some of my posts that I've made recently. The left and the anti-gunners or anti-Second Amendment movements are increasingly using the word civilian to kind of denigrate our
Right.
status as citizens in terms of, oh, you as a civilian, you shouldn't be carrying firearms out in the world. You as a civilian, you shouldn't really be carrying this type of firearm because that's a weapon of war or what have you, right?
Yes.
As
Right.
if your life is not worthy of protecting with superior firepower.
Yeah.
Let me tell you right now, your life is worthy, and the life of your loved ones is worthy of protecting with superior firepower. So you
Yeah.
should do so.
No, I love that point. That's a great point because calling us civilians, if we're not armed services or if we're not police
Yep.
officers or
Yep.
sheriffs, it's a great point because then essentially it raises like the bar to say, oh, well, really you need special training or a special license or like a government card or something that says you can exercise this right of carrying a firearm or using the firearm to defend yourself. Great point. And you see them doing it with all kinds of other things too. And it's not just the left, but it's sometimes this idea that there are experts or people that need to be handling stuff, not just us little people, right? Whether it's the law, whether it's reading the Constitution, like you don't need to be a
Healthcare,
lawyer.
listen to the experts. Civilian.
Healthcare, yeah, leave it all to the experts. It's like no. Again, what a lot of the left and progressives say, oh, we love democracy. No, I don't think you do.
No.
I don't think you do love democracy because you don't want the little people to govern ourselves, to defend ourselves. Let me tell you, we can all run for office. You don't have to be some expert. You don't have to have a license to run for office. There's no license to speak your mind, to speak freely. You don't need to have a medical degree to decide what goes into your body. You don't need to be a biologist to determine what a man is and what a woman is. And to get to your point, you can be a civilian, so-called. You can just be a regular citizen, forget civilian, and you can carry and you can use a weapon for self-defense or for hunting or for whatever it is that you want, right? And I think it's a really good point that you make. We don't need these new terms to place rights out of our reach or to have things that we can't access.
Thank you. Yep.
Let me ask a couple more things here because great conversation so far, but we got to touch upon a couple more things. One of them is this past week, and when this airs, it'll be about a week ago. The New Mexico governor. So that's been in the national news. Everyone's commented on it. I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Let me craft the point because I'm sure you and I know where each other stand on that. Probably the audience listening to this knows where we stand. But first of all, what was that? Was it a trial balloon? Was she put up to this by anti-gun groups in your estimation? And of course, it failed miserably. So at least we had a Democrat sheriff who said, "I'm not enforcing this." We had their attorney general of New Mexico saying, "We're not enforcing this gun ban." And I'm sure everyone here knows, but for those who might not remember the details, the New Mexico governor, Governor Lujan Grisham, I believe is her name, she essentially exercised emergency powers because there was a terrible crime that was committed. I think an 11-year-old died, which is tragic. None of us want that happening. So there was this terrible crime which made big headlines, I guess, in New Mexico or Albuquerque. And she decided to go full tyrant and say there's going to be something like a 30-day suspension of essentially Second Amendment rights, that there's going to be no more concealed carry, no more open carry, I believe, in the state. So she kind of went crazy with that. She was overturned by all of her local and state officials, and she's been kind of made into a pariah nationally. And even David Hogg and a lot of the anti-gunners that you and I would normally be railing against completely, even Ted Lieu here in California, they've come out and said, "Oh, whoa, she way overstepped. She shouldn't have done that. We do have a constitutional right to." And a lot of us were scratching our heads like, well, this is weird, isn't it? Like, this is really strange. The whole thing seems to me like kabuki theater, like it's staged. Was it a trial balloon? What was behind this? Did someone put her up to trying this to see what our reaction would be?
That is exactly what it
What do you
was.
make of this, Osvaldo? I'm sure you've
That
thought of it.
is that is exactly what it was. It was a an ill-timed trial run.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
very ill-timed. That we saw it coming from the COVID times when they attempted the suspension of closure of all gun shops
Right.
and ranges, and we said no. What that whole travesty about what's the word that we're using? Uh, Essential.
Oh,
When
yeah.
things were
Who's essential?
declared
Right.
who's essential and who's non-essential, and places that were
Right.
non-essential. We saw it coming, and we knew it was only a matter of time. And because we have seen the rhetoric about health emergencies, about declaring gun violence as a health emergency, that which is the reason why they like to trot out emergency room physicians,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is how
Yeah.
they like to throw in that angle. That is why a few months back they brought out the Los Angeles County ghoul, the lady that's
Barbara
the health
Ferrer.
Barbara Ferrer, right?
Skeletor. Yeah.
The vivid picture of health herself.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Looking great.
And speaking
Right.
about gun violence in terms of health, that is why. So we saw it coming, but yes, it was a trial run, and I will tell you that David Hogg's reaction, Mr. Busey, who was a former farms executive, um,
Hmm.
and Ted Lieu and some others, the only reason why they went against her was because they saw the severe backlash.
Yeah.
Because it
Right.
wasn't immediate, their reaction was not immediate. Their reaction was a few days delayed.
Yes. Yeah.
So
And
go for
go
it.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say that usually I'm pretty skeptical of these things. And I like to, it's always good to wait 24, 48 hours, or
Right.
what does Dan Bongino call it? The Bongino rule on his show. But in general, it's good to be kind of, skeptical and say, okay, what's really going on here? But I am heartened. I am enthusiastically kind of pleased with the reaction because it was so swift. And there was so much civil disobedience. There were all those great citizens groups that went and
that
marched.
was lovely.
Yes, they had a rally. They said, nope, we're open carrying, we're concealed carrying. We are free people. We're going to downtown or Old Town Albuquerque. And here we are. Come and take it. Right.
It was lovely.
Hashtag FAFO. Right.
Yep.
And so I think I'm going to allow myself to be happy with this one because I think whatever the weird puppet show was that was staged on this, with this governor, and maybe she just bumbled into a stupid move. Maybe she thought she'd be a hero. I don't know exactly what happened behind the scenes, but I am really heartened and I am really happy about the reaction. And I think if anything else, it is going to show that no, there will be civil disobedience if the left tries an emergency, like hashtag emergency gun
suspension of rights
or suspension of rights or Hurricane Katrina type deal. Never, ever submit your basic natural rights to an emergency declaration or order or whatnot. And then even Michael Knowles, who is a prominent conservative on Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro's network or whatever,
Yep.
He came out and kind of had this cringy take, almost like John Adams defending the Redcoats kind of thing, where he was like, well, no, sometimes there is a reason where your rights could be suspended. It's happened before.
Up, man.
And that was my initial reaction. And then I kind of went, well, yeah, okay, Michael Knowles, I understand what you're saying. He's trying to be nuanced and he's trying to say like, he's probably referring to like COVID, what actually happened. But then I kind of switched back and I'm having this thought process in my mind and talking to people about it. And it's like, but at the end of the day, I love the Constitution. You love the Constitution. We love the Bill of Rights. But it is a good point. It doesn't enforce itself. So at the end of the day, the ultimate authority is the people, what the people decide to do. Because the governor of New Mexico came in and she kind of just basically superseded, or she tried to supersede the Constitution and throw her weight down on the table and say, yeah, I can suspend it. I'm taking that right. No constitutional right is absolute. But what we, the people, need to do is come in and slam our paper down on top of hers, or bang our fist on the table and say, no, we supersede you. At the end of the day, the rule of law, whatever we call it, it will be superseded by the will of the people. And if we're going to be a free people, then we are going to decide. That's kind of where I ended up on it. It's like, I see Michael Knowles' point, but more important than Michael Knowles' point is that, oh no, that's only if we allow the tyrants in the government to say that they get to do this. She can say it, but then if we go peacefully march and we have, we've got the weapons, they're armed,
right,
they're concealed, they're openly carrying, then that's it. That's the whole deal right there. That's the decision of the people, by the people, for the people.
The
right?
bottom line is the right that you don't exercise is a right that you don't have.
Yes. Right.
The right you don't exercise is a right that you don't have. Period.
Yes.
So it's your right. You go and exercise it.
Yep. That's right.
Assertively, decidedly.
Yes.
Unapologetically. How about that?
Yeah, I love all those. Those are excellent descriptive words. So we're in agreement there. And if it comes here, all the fine people listening to this podcast, for both of us, it's like, if it comes here, if Newsom tries this, which I don't think he will anytime soon, but God forbid, crazier things have happened. Mm-hmm. If some governor in California or some attorney general in California or in your county, one of our, 58 counties here, if someone tries this, remember, the answer is an emphatic no. It's no, you're not going to take the guns. You're not going to take away this natural right. And so the people just have to be firm and resolute and emphatic, as you said. And
I wouldn't put it past a Rob Bonta, because I'm pretty sure Rob Bonta, I think, has his eyes set on the governorship.
Yeah, he's come out big time. He's definitely making waves for himself. No one even knows who the lieutenant governor is, Kounalakis or whatever. Yeah, Bonta seems to be moving in to that slot. So I think you make a good point. He might want to curry favor with the progressives in his party for a primary in a few years.
Yep.
Okay, and before I let you go, the last topic I wanted to touch base with you on is you recently went to I guess a gun, or should I say an anti-gun forum at East LA College, right? Just this past week. Who put that on? What was that all about? And how did that go?
Oh man, that was so much fun, dude. So
I wish I could have gone with you.
This was just last week, last Friday. Oh man, what's today? So like the 12th? No, the 9th. September 9th or so. David Hogg on Twitter put out a post through his March for Our Lives, and I think he pushed it himself, that we're having an event in LA. It was a 24-hour, literally a 24-hour or 48-hour announcement that they were holding this gun violence prevention town hall. I'm using the air quotes purposely. Town hall with the 4 people who are running for, I think, some senator. Who is it that's bowing out for California? I think it was.
Not Becerra.
I think it's for maybe for Dianne Feinstein's seat.
Yeah, well, Feinstein is retiring, so these are the folks.
It's for her seat.
Okay, it was for the people who are running for the U.S. Senate, for her seat. Because she's retiring, because she's 428 years old. Yeah.
Yep. So it was Adam Schiff and 3 other ladies that I have no idea who they are, but they are anti-Second Amendment. So I went in there right away. I RSVP'd for the event because they had it open. There was no vetting whatsoever happening. And I made my merry way to the event, which happened in the East Los Angeles College. It's so funny because they always hold these anti-Second Amendment, anti-gun events in the most posh, sanitized, sterile environments. Sure. They never hold these gun violence prevention events in the hood,
Yeah.
where the violence happens day in
Yep.
and day out, and where good people, suffer the consequences of the lax, policies on criminal activity.
Of course.
Anyways,
Yeah.
so I made my way in there. The very first thing that happens, so funny. They have this in their RSVP email. Actually, they said that they were going to have security right at the door, checking bags for your safety.
I hope
I'm
they're
like,
unarmed security.
wow,
Unarmed, right?
wow, that's awesome, cool.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be safe in there. Okay, cool. So I made my way to the door. Um, I was dressed in very hippie-ish type. My eyeglasses. I was very non-threatening, and I was holding my belongings in my hands. By the way, I was having concealing attire. Okay, keep that in mind. I was
Mm-hmm.
having very very concealing attire, and I did that for a purpose. I was holding my belongings in my hands, and I
Yeah.
approached the table where there were two individuals. I cannot remember the name of the security company, but it was like a private hired security company, and they had those metal detector wands
Yeah.
there present with them. They had it right there on the table, and they were checking people's bags. So I was holding my belongings in my hands, very non-threatening. They waved me in. They did not check me. And I
Wow.
and I said that, and I say that very making a point that these people are not serious. These people are
Yeah.
never serious about your safety. They do not care. They could not care one iota about your
So they're
safety.
kind of like the TSA at the airports, is what you're saying.
Yeah, very professional.
Yeah.
Extremely
Right.
professional about your safety. So I was waved in. So I could have very well, if I had been somebody with evil intent, walked into that place, which was going to have very high profile individuals and a sitting congressman
Yeah.
in there. I sat right in the second row in the front.
Was it Schiff? Was
It
Schiff
was
there?
Schiff. Yes, he
Yeah.
was there.
Shifty Schiff. Okay.
Side note, Mr. Hogg, David Hogg, actually made an appearance unannounced, which I thought was kind of weird. Well, he's a coward anyway. David, you're a coward. He made an unannounced appearance well after I left, because I left after the first two speakers, which was Adam Schiff and some of the Rep Barbara Lee, who's a congressperson.
Yeah.
But the highlight of my day was actually that I got to give Adam Schiff quite a bit of my thoughts after he was done spewing his nonsense.
Nice.
I'm gonna paraphrase, but after all the nonsense that he said, all the platitudes and all the lies that the left typically says about guns, I said, and I paraphrase, Congressman, nothing of what you just suggested would help the good people, would give them any advantages in the real world over bad people who ignore all laws.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing of what you said here would give any good people any advantages whatsoever in the real world. Because guess what, people? They do not. Gun control does not help you in any way whatsoever. It does not. I love to put it in this way. What kind of advantage, what kind of real advantage does gun control give you, the peaceable individual, aka law-abiding citizen, over people who break laws? I'm gonna wait for a response.
Yeah.
None.
Right. Don't hold your breath.
No. So, it was lovely. People's jaws just dropped to the floor. Like,
You must have been like one of the only people in there, from that perspective, or from a liberty perspective.
I
I'm
was
guessing.
literally the only one, because I was listening. I was there like an hour early, and I was listening to all their chatter. And it's people who we may live in the same planet, but we completely, to be honest, we live in different worlds.
Sure.
These people
Right.
do not live in the same world that everybody else does.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's incredible. It's almost like some of these anti-gunners and folks in the mainstream left too. It's not just extremists, but they really think that there's like something magical or something evil about guns, which are just a tool. They're a machine,
Yeah.
which can be used for good. They can be used for recreation. They can be used for ill purposes. They're just a tool, but it's like there's some kind of like spooky evil just having
Spooky
400 million
voodoo. Yeah.
guns in the hands of quote civilians, who don't have a license or whatever to carry from the government. It's like they have some mystical or Gnostic, kind of aversion to guns. It's very strange,
Yeah.
especially from people who are tending to be less religious, but it's fully like a religious,
It is.
like I say, it's like a Gnosticism about guns having some evil power, right? Like a
They are.
witchcraft about guns.
They're quite literally the only tool that they ascribe an evil, a spirit to.
Right.
None of the other tools, ubiquitous tools that are in society today, fully accessible to everyone, that get used in very evil ways, none of those get ascribed, evil intent within themselves. Nor are they called to be banned or regulated.
Yeah, that's
The
right.
Boston Marathon bombers used a what? Pressure cooker.
Yeah, right. Homemade bombs, God forbid.
So how
Yeah.
many people use everyday useful tools like vehicles, cars, box trucks to
Yep.
mow down scores of people in purely evil ways, but the vehicle doesn't get such a description? Why?
No, that's absolutely right. And I feel like with our opponents, coming from the anti-gun left and some of these progressives, it's just like there can be no solution outside of the state. So in many ways, they are truly statists. It's not just an
Yes.
epithet that we
Yes.
hurl at them
Nope.
because they really think that, well, solving violence or solving these problems that we have, with murders or like gun suicides, well, we just need laws. We have to have laws. Government's
Right.
got to be involved with good stuff, that they, capital G, capital S. Government's got to give us good stuff, and then we'll have a good society. But really, people more like where I'm coming from, probably where you're coming from, are thinking like government. This has nothing to do with government. We have to have a healthy civil society of functioning neighbors and human beings and citizens who can get along with or without a government.
That's
Has
right.
nothing to do with that. I would never go and harm someone peaceful. I'm a peaceable citizen.
Mhm.
This problem does not come from the tool. The problem comes from the breakdown of culture and a sick society where we've inverted natural truths about the universe. And
This gun has been sitting here this entire time and hasn't shot anyone.
thank God for that.
Shocking.
Yeah, you lucked out, my friend. On that note, I really appreciate your time today. Another great conversation, Osvaldo.
Thank you for having me.
Once again, where can people follow your social media? Blast that out once again, and then your website one more time.
On Twitter /X, Triggerology FT. I'm in there giving hell to lefties and anti-gunners day in and day out. I love it. On Instagram, Triggerology_FT. Please support my work by buying some awesome based apparel such as this. I'm keeping my guns, Gavin. I'm keeping my guns, Joe. I have
Nice.
all I want is superior firepower. I got all kinds of stuff for men and women.
Cool.
That is triggerology.shop, and my website is triggerologyft.com.
Awesome. Triggerology.shop and triggerologyft.com. Make sure to go check those out. Follow Osvaldo and his pursuits on Instagram, social media, and X, Twitter. So Osvaldo, thank you very much for your time once again. Really appreciate it. And I'll look forward to speaking with you. Yeah, let me know again when we have more of these fun anti-gun events. I'd like to join you on one of these. That'd be fun. We can get some good footage. Anyway, have a great weekend and thank you very much.
Thanks, brother. You too.